Welcome to another episode at the Fitness Oracle. Today we sit down with Zach Tucker and Jeremy Grader from the Fit Mess. For nearly a decade, these two have pushed themselves to learn more about their own physical, emotional, and mental health. This has created a passion for using their acquired knowledge to help others. As hosts of the show since 2017, they have had the opportunity to speak with a wide range of guests, including some of the biggest names in the health and wellness industry. Now, it was my privilege to interview these two great guys. It was a first for me to be able to interview. Actually, no, that's wrong. I did interview two people at the same time at the beginning of my career as a podcaster. But this was interesting because it was two guys with two very, very, very different but similar stories where everybody could draw from. We talked a lot about addiction. We talked a lot about motivation. We talked a lot about the power of solving problems. We talked about the power of being vulnerable and seeing vulnerability as a strength, especially for men. And we talked about setting life paths. Again, it was such an honor for me to interview these two guys because their wealth of knowledge is and was epic on epic proportions. So, as usual, guys, you're going to be writing a lot of stuff, a lot of great content out of this podcast, out of this episode. So grab a pen and paper, grab a cup of Joe. Remember to be pausing it in between, rewinding it so you can re-listen to some of the stuff that we talked about, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Fitness Oracle, where we have real conversations with real people just like you, with real stories just like yours. And this is one of their stories. I am your host, John Katsavos. And today we're doing something a little bit different by having two guests on, Zach Tucker and Jeremy Grader from the Fit Mess. Zach and Jeremy are the founders and hosts of the Fit Mess podcast. And for nearly a decade, they've pushed themselves to learn more about their own physical, emotional, and mental health. This has created a passion for using their acquired knowledge to help others. As hosts of the show since 2017, they have had the opportunity to speak to a wide range of guests, including some of the biggest names in the health and wellness spaces. Zach, Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
How are you guys been doing? Like, I know I was on your show for a couple months now, and I had a blast. Thank you for inviting me. That was awesome. How has the show been growing now?
Continues to grow every month. We do a lot of outreach and a lot of promotion, and whatever we can to help spread the word, because we know what it's like to be at the beginning stage of your health and fitness journey, or just your overall wellness journey. And that's what it's been all about for us, is just trying to help people like us, 10 years ago, that are just sort of sick of their own crap and want to get out of their own way, and they don't have the resources or the knowledge or know where to start. And so that's what this has been about for us for the last few years, is just trying to help people like us that are trying to build those habits to get over whatever obstacles life throws at them.
Love it. Love it. So I'm going to keep it like an open forum. So whenever you guys want to jump in, whoever wants to answer, just answer. I'm not, there's no real format. I don't like the formal stuff. So just whoever wants to answer. First, I want to get both your opinion on these next two questions. Is what first got you interested in this kind of work?
Well,
which kind of work? Are we talking podcasting or health and fitness?
The health and fitness.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the health and fitness side of it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to answer. But thank you for clarifying, Jeremy.
Hey, he said I could jump in with questions. So I had a question I wanted to ask. There you go.
Yeah. So for me, it was, it was almost 20 years ago. I was I was nearly 300 pounds, smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day, drank a 2-liter Mountain Dew every day. Didn't move my body in any way, shape, or form, had a desk job, and was just in this, you know, um, bad place physically and mentally as well, like a lot of anxiety and quite a bit of depression. And this is kind of the beginning, the origin story for me is really I went for a job interview and I didn't want to smell like cigarettes that day, so I actually put a nicotine patch on so I wouldn't stink, knowing full well that smoking is stinky, and I did it anyway. And I got the job. The interview went great, and then on my first day, my boss walked in and smelled the cigarettes on me, and he looked at me in words I will never forget. He's like, "Oh, if I had known that you smoked, I would have never hired you." And for me at that point in my life, like, that was my professional career being limited by these things that were unhealthy and stinky and like just overall bad for me. And that was kind of my moment of, oh, maybe I do need to take care of myself. Maybe I need to do things for myself, health and fitness wise. And I ended up quitting smoking, one of the hardest things I ever did, which led to me starting to run, which led to me to realize, oh, I kind of like moving my body. Oh, and the food I'm eating is crappy, and let's change that. And, and this little thing and this little thing and that little thing. And 10 years later, I was like, oh, I kind of really enjoy this health and fitness stuff. And then, a few years later, I really was connecting with Jeremy and going, it's time to kind of pay this back. Like, there's a lot of people that helped me along the way, and now it's time for me to do the same. So I think Jeremy can probably add color from his own story, but when I approached Jeremy about doing a podcast on health and wellness, he said, no way.
Yeah, because my journey started really with a dumb knee injury. I literally hurt my knee getting out of bed one morning. Ended up in a physical therapist's office where they said, if you don't get on a bike, you're going to end up replacing both your knees because that's what your family's had to do. So I sort of laughed it off like, well, that's ridiculous. I haven't been on a bike since I was 6 years old. I'm not about to start now at, whatever I was, 35 or whatever. And I basically went to my brother and I was like, hey, this is what I always did. I always went and complained to him because that was easier than actually doing anything. I was like, yeah, this crazy doctor thinks I need to get on a bike. And he's like, well, dummy, why don't you just go get a bike and start bike commuting? Because it wouldn't be any longer than riding the bus is. And I was like, oh, that's not a bad idea. And so I took it to heart. And for whatever reason, the way he said it at that time, it just, I heard it the way I needed to hear it at that time. And I did. Within a week, I had a bike and started my 9-mile ride to work every day. And it completely changed my life because it introduced me to a way of being present in a way that I had never really known. If you're not completely in the moment when you're riding a bike through city streets, it's going to end badly. If you're distracted, if you're thinking about the past, worried about the future, you're going to miss, the pedestrian right in front of you, the car door that's going to pop open, the pothole you're going to, face plant into. And I fell in love with that feeling. And I just started wondering, how can I add this to my life when I'm off the bike? How can I go to work and not worry about what's going to happen in an hour or later this week or whatever? And my wife suggested trying to find a therapist, and I found who has basically been my Yoda for the last several years. He introduced me to meditation and just the Dharma and learning how to create more presence in my life, just through meditating, through letting go of all of the past garbage and worries about the future. And it was during that time that I also started to lose some weight and start feeling better because I was riding my bike, 9 to 20 miles a day. I got to know Zach through, our kids were born around the same time. So our wives were connected in a fitness group. And so we became friends over time. And I learned that Zach was a few steps ahead of me on his journey. And so I was asking him a lot of questions about what was working for him. And then, the more that we were able to sort of open up and be vulnerable and share what was going on, in terms of the struggle behind all of this getting better mentally, physically, and emotionally, that was when Zach approached me with the idea of the podcast, because I'd been podcasting already for over a decade. It was just a very different show and a very different lifestyle. And so the idea of being, some sort of authority on health and fitness was just completely foreign to me. But then I realized quickly that we didn't need to be the authority. We just needed to share our experience and help the people that were just a few steps behind us, the way I was with Zach. And the rest is sort of history. We started doing the podcast when I made that realization. And ever since then, it's been our mission to help people like us that are just a few steps behind.
That's awesome. You guys have brought up a really interesting talking point that I want to touch up on, but we can get into that a little bit later. But when it comes to the podcasting's part, or even the fitness part, have you guys ever had any moments where you just wanted to quit, to say, you know what, enough's enough, I'm done, I just want to sit in front of the TV, watch Netflix for the rest of my life?
Are you in my head for the last hour? What's going on there? Yeah,
Maybe.
all the time. Yeah, I mean, there are days I had it this morning. I'm sitting there with my athletic greens and a couple other vitamins that I add to the potion every morning, and just going like, I do this every day, every single day. I drink this, and then I go and I try and move my body, and every day I still have to fight the same battles and win the same arguments with the voices in my head. And there are times when I've been alcohol free for 5 years. I'm in really good shape, compared to where I was then. There are so many days when it would be so much easier, I think, to not do all of this and just go, pound a 6-pack of beer, numb out, completely check out of all the feelings, and just go back to, sort of living in the, I don't like the word ignorance, but like living in a state of knowing that with some hard work, I can make some progress, because it's easier to just be the victim and just be like, oh, how come the world's out to get me? How come everything sucks? Well, it's because I wasn't doing anything difficult, right? I wasn't trying very hard. I was just letting life do what it was going to do and reacting rather than sort of preparing and being in a better position to face whatever obstacles came my way. So yeah, all the time. I mean, we have months where the show's not as successful as others, and we have months where it just completely blows us away how many people show up. So there's always hurdles to jump over that we have to remember, sort of the North Star. Like, what are we working towards here? Because if we focus on the short-term things that get in the way, or even the short-term successes, it starts to cloud the overall vision of all of this hard work and everything that we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even for me this morning, I get up at 4:30 every morning to go to the gym. And even this morning, like, I woke up and my alarm clock is strategically placed as far away from my bed as possible. So I have to get up out of bed and walk across the room to turn it off. And I got all the way over and I turned the alarm off, and I just looked back at my bed, like, longingly, like, really just, had this deep passion and love to, like, get back into bed under the warm covers and skip the workout and not do it. And, like Jeremy was saying, those short term and long term, in that moment, I had to connect back with, these are my long-term goals. And this short-term thing is on the way to my long-term goal. And it got me out the door. But yeah, no, everything that I have in my entire life, whether it's work, whether it's my mental health, whether it's my physical health, whether it's, the meal that I plan to make for me and my daughter later that day, I have doubts all the time, right up until the moment of actually doing it. And the big differentiator is just doing it and not letting those voices overtake you.
That's been my entire week so far.
Yeah.
You
and a
guys,
lot of people, I'm sure.
yeah. You guys have a very interesting dynamic, and I love it because what you guys just explained with your two different stories was, you guys have an accountability partner when it comes to your fitness. When it comes to your fitness and your podcasting, you guys have each other accountable. Do you think that if you didn't have each other in your life, do you think it would be harder for you to stay focused? And how does motivation play in that to help you, to help you stay motivated?
Mm-hmm. A couple thoughts there. One is, I've come to believe that motivation is complete garbage. I don't think it's a real thing. I think that motivation is the result of taking action that becomes habit, that becomes just the machine that runs itself. So I can't tell you how many times we've seen, in our Facebook group, or hear from listeners, or just anywhere. Oh, I'm just waiting for the motivation to get started. I'm waiting for Monday. I'm waiting for New Year's. I'm waiting for the when to change, whatever thing whatever motivation you're waiting for. Like there's no Disney moment coming. Like nobody's going to come and knock on the door and say, "Hey, here we go. Time to do the thing." Unless, of course, you have an accountability partner, then that person might be that motivation that you need. But I just, if you're waiting for motivation to do something, you have to create it with your bare hands, and your hands are going to get bloody and bruised, and it's going to hurt. So stop waiting for motivation and start creating it. To answer the first part of your question, Zach is somewhat of an accountability partner because we do rely on each other as friends when times are tough. But the show itself has been an incredible accountability partner because I couldn't in good faith show up on this microphone every week and talk about, how to live a better life, how to work towards your goals, how to face obstacles and get over them or power through them if I wasn't doing it myself. If I turned off the microphone and went downstairs and ate a bag of Doritos and pounded a 2-liter of Mountain Dew and then came back the next week and told everybody, here's what I think you should do while not doing it myself, I would be a huge hypocrite and I couldn't live with myself. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of times when I slip and fall and have to get back up and come back to the microphone and be accountable for my own actions. But that's the show itself has been an incredibly powerful accountability tool for me.
Yeah. Same. I know, for me, like physical exercise, I'm very self-motivated on that. Like I've made the decision to do that. And I'm actually the one that gives Jeremy a lot of crap about not working out, like from the physical side.
Yeah.
But same, like we do lean on each other quite a bit for, those moments where we just need to talk to somebody, where we need to vent, where we need to be vulnerable, we need to get our emotions out. And as a guy, right, this is not something that is historically been okay to do. And I think it's starting to come around and people are starting to get better with it. But, guys being vulnerable with other guys is a relatively new thing. So having somebody like Jeremy for me that I can actually bounce all of this stuff off of and literally like get on a Zoom call and cry, and he's not going to judge me. I mean, like he'll make fun of me later on after I'm done crying, but he won't judge me in the moment. And he's that person that I can talk to. When my wife and I decided to separate, he was the first person I called, and we spent an hour on the phone just kind of talking through it and me just laying it out. And he didn't give me any advice. He didn't talk about what I should do. He just listened and was there for me. So we are accountability partners in that sense. But to his other point, the podcast itself, I mean, I'm curious by nature. So like every person that we talk to, and this is my problem, every person we talk to, I'm like, oh, I want to try that. Oh, I want to try that. And we talk to so many people that I can't actually do it. So I feel bad sometimes that I can't put everything into place that we talk about on the show. But man, I love talking to guests, going and trying whatever it is that they're talking about, and then getting on the show and talking about my success or failure with it. It's huge accountability for both of us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Zach, you said something really important there. You use your accountability, excuse me, you use your accountability partner to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I am 100% in agreement with you. This is a new thing for us guys. Historically speaking, going back to the very dawn of time, men are the providers. We are the hunters. We're the rock of the family unit. And for us to start opening up, it's a really new thing. It's a really hard thing. What do you suggest for guys, especially guys who are using other substances as an excuse to drown out that vulnerability, that voice, and to reach out to other guys? How would you go about showing them how to do that?
Well, I've got a couple of thoughts on it. So one, I've been alcohol free for about 6 years myself as well. So like, that was my numbing agent back in the day. There's this one concept that we've heard a couple of times where, when we talk about guys being vulnerable and expressing their emotions and talking with other guys, it's looked on as like a guy being feminine or not being a man, right? And what I really want to just clarify and make sure people understand, and I think this really helped me, and I think it's helped quite a few other people. When you're talking about being vulnerable and talking to other guys about the things that are bothering you and just doing that vulnerable work, you're not taking away from being a man. Like, you can still be the provider. You can still go hunting and make all the money and make sure that the house is uh painted and, concrete repair and like changing like all of these things that are like the manly things. You can still do all of those things that make you a man. This is additional things that just make you a better human being, right? This is going to allow you to be a better man, to be a better provider, to be able to change that tire better without, dropping the F-bomb all over the place. I think that one concept for me was kind of life altering in that, it's not, being a sissy or being, too feminine. It's literally just adding these qualities that men have not had for so long that just make you overall a better human being. And in my opinion, a better man overall to provide for your family.
I'll jump in on the substance part of this, and I'll warn that any guy who is hearing this, and I would have to assume women too. I'm not a woman, not my perspective. I don't know. But any guy who's hearing this and thinking, God, yeah, I probably lean on the beer a little bit too much to numb out and all that. There's probably no harder thing you will ever give up than relying on substances to deal with your pain. No harder thing. We have this little card of questions on our dining room table, and my kids like to pull out the questions and ask the family what the things are. There's one they ask me all the time. It just like coincidentally, but it's always, what habit are you most proud of breaking? And it's quitting drinking. Because I had no idea how much I relied on it to manage my pain and to manage my feelings. I had no idea. I still don't know that I accept being an alcoholic. I don't think it was that bad, but I certainly, I still have the instinct of, this hurts, where's the beer? How do I make this go away as quick as possible? And there's, I have to make a mental step to not go and drink sometimes, because it was just so automatic. So there's probably no harder thing you'll ever do in your life. So if you are not used to doing hard things, if you're not used to overcoming challenges in front of, whatever in front of you, that might not be the first one I would take on, but it's certainly the most important one that you could probably take on. So for me, it started slowly with, I was on antidepressants because I hated my life. I was on a bunch of other medications. Just coincidentally, I had the bike crash that changed my life. I was on some pain medication for that. And so over time, I started getting curious as I stopped taking things. I stopped taking the pain medication because my knee didn't hurt anymore, or my shoulder didn't hurt anymore. And then I was like, oh, I'm curious. I feel better without that. What if I stopped taking these antidepressants? I stopped taking those, started getting a little more clarity, started like sort of feeling my feelings. Woke up on New Year's Day one morning with a mild, probably the most mild hangover I ever had in my life, but it was enough to just go, why do I keep doing, like, why were 2 beers worth feeling like this? This is stupid. I'm not going to drink for a month. And here we are 5 years later. So, and by the way, like I said, hardest thing I ever did. The physical pain and the emotional pain for the first year and a half of not having that as a crutch was brutal. And it was like drinking was a part of my identity. I was a regular guest on a show where we drank beer and reviewed it and, made stupid jokes about it. It was a part of who I was. And so it was such a habit. Every time we drive by a brewery, oh, let's go in and try out those beers. Like, and so it was just so weird for the first 6 months, every time we would drive by a place that we would normally just pull in to have a beer, to have to like think through why I'm not doing that. But it completely changed my life and opened me up to facing a lot of the pain that I was masking. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I guess I would just warn, like, it's probably the hardest thing you'll ever do, but there's probably nothing more rewarding that you could do if you're going to make a change to your life.
It's I'm blown away by a lot of stuff right now, because I'm starting to see myself falling into the drinking the drinking stuff. I drink myself to sleep last couple of days. I'm going through a really rough patch personally with changes that's happening here in my life and everything. So I can see where you guys are coming from, and I know how hard it is. What are some of the tips that you could give somebody, not me, because I have my own way of dealing with stuff. I just go cold turkey. Once I'm done and done, I just go to cold turkey. But somebody who can't do cold turkey stuff, what are some tips and tricks that you could tell somebody to help them deal with the hard things in life?
I think, just to dovetail off of what we were just talking about, if booze is your issue, we talked with a guy who did a ton of research on this subject. His name is Johan Hari, and I think he was on our 8th episode. So I think it was episode number 8. But we talked about the idea that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. And that's still, like, just saying it out loud, I get chills because it's so true. Like, we are so afraid or challenged to share what's going on the inside with anybody. But if you have a support system, for me, it was largely, my therapist, and Zach was a big resource too. But, my therapist was a recovering addict. So there was no better person to go to and say, God, I feel like this. And he's like, yep, part of the deal, power through, you're going to be all right. Do this, do this, do this. So having someone that, could help sort of guide me on that path was huge. And so for some people, that's a 12-step program. For some people, that's just a friend. For some people, that's, opening up to just somebody close to you. But I think one of the biggest lessons we've learned in doing this show and doing the work that we've done over the last however many years it's been now is that vulnerability is where the power is. Because if you can share, like you just did, that you are in a tough spot and you're drinking yourself to sleep at night, to have someone that can say, let's find another way. What's going on? Let's talk that through. Let's get that stuff out. Let's move your body to move that energy out. Like whatever that angle is that works for you, you've got to have support, because none of us can get through this stuff alone. And it's so tempting as a guy to just shut it down, not tell anybody, be the stoic rock that just, goes to work and makes the money and does their part. They're the provider, and that's the deal. But if you don't have an outlet for that stuff, it will eat you alive from the inside. So I can't stress enough that if you don't have a therapist, if you don't have someone that you can turn to deal with whatever you're dealing with, find them today.
Yeah. And to add to that, the vulnerability piece, the one thing that I've found personally over the years is when you are looking to make a change, whatever it is, if it's quitting drinking, if it's being vulnerable, if it's, exercising, working out, these are things that, like, we as individuals are not good at. We don't know a lot about, and to become an expert in any of them is not a fair ask for the most part, right? So finding a coach for any of this stuff, whether it's a therapist, a personal trainer, or somebody who knows a little something about what it is that you're trying to do, is really, really important. You don't have to do it alone. Like, people will help you. Yes, some people want money for it, but people do genuinely want to help you. And being vulnerable about where you're struggling, that has been so powerful for me, because whenever I complain to Jeremy about something that's bothering me, or I say something to somebody random, and be vulnerable with them, these coaches and teachers that I need in the moment just show up, right? They won't show up if you don't say anything about it. And that's been huge for me, is that the people that I need to be in my life to help me through the situations that I can't do alone, they show up because I'm being vulnerable about it.
Do you guys think that, because I'm a big believer that there is a certain moment in time and space for an individual to be living in their own darkness, to understand their darkness so that they can move forward. Do you guys believe in that at all? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I am absolutely. I think, sometimes we just need to, I'm blanking on the name of it. Journey of the soul. It's on the tip of my tongue, but sometimes you really just need to like spend a week, like just really, I mean, sometimes you feel a certain way and you don't know why you feel that way. And, talking about it with somebody could be helpful, but like sometimes you just need to go on that journey by yourself and really dig deep into the recesses of your brain and your memories and, what's happened to you. In order to figure that out. I know I've done it a couple of times. Just 3-4 days of like really, really deep opening up the emotion gates and letting them flow and feeling them, as opposed just really, really feeling them and questioning, where is this coming from? Like what is it about me that's making this happen? So I'm a huge believer in that. I know when again, I'll go back to when my wife and I decided to separate. I tell this story a lot. Like it hit me that we were going to be separating. And I spent 3 days just feeling everything that came in. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't really do anything. I just felt the feelings and let them flow through me and process. And then after 3 days, like there was just this wave that came off of me. And I was like, oh, okay, I've processed everything. I've done my thing and I understand why I feel the way I feel. And then I immediately called Jeremy. I was like, okay, I think I'm done grieving. So yeah, huge believer in that.
Some of the most healing work that I've done is in this process called core energetics or radical aliveness, depending on what you subscribe to. But it is basically the belief that, kind of the idea that the body keeps the score, right? Like whatever trauma, emotional, physical, whatever, your body stores that. Like it's energy that's trapped in your body. And so this work that I've done involves just doing the work that Zach's talking about, but in a less cerebral way. Like it's about like letting go of the story, letting go of the things you're telling yourself, like whatever thing that happened to you when you were 8 that you're still hanging on to, letting go of whatever that thing was and focusing on the feeling. Where do you feel it physically in your body? And then sort of listening to how your body wants to move it. It's something that I struggle with because, moving my body is not something that I like, I'm not about to bust out on the dance floor, right? Like that's not my thing. But I've seen people do this work where it's just a matter of like grabbing a mallet and just beating the crap out of, a mattress or something, or just screaming if that's what you need to do. And when you tap into just the raw feeling and let go of the story, your body tells you how to move it and get it out. So in this work that I've done, I've been able to let go of a lot of stuff. I've sort of reparented myself in traumatic events from my past. I've connected to those feelings and made decisions about just never again. I'm not going to cave to that feeling ever again. It no longer has power over me. So I don't know if that completely answers your question about sort of facing the darkness, but your body does store it. It's energy. Everything's energy. And so, grief, sadness, pain, whatever it is, it's just something in you that needs to get out. And so if that's just, you got to cry for 3 days, go cry for 3 days. You need to go, slam a mallet against a mattress for a couple hours, or just throw your pillow on the ground, whatever it is, like just get that crap out because it's just toxic. And it too will eat you alive from the inside.
Yeah, you guys are so right. That's why that's why I put martial arts into my life, is because I have that outlet to get rid of all that negative energy inside of me. When you excuse me, Jeremy, when you said screaming, I know I have a friend in the UK, and she gets out onto the street at 3 o'clock in the morning and she screams at the top of her lungs.
Wow, I bet her neighbors love her.
Great girl, but I mean the screaming part at 3 a.m. I'd be
Right.
calling the cops. I'm like, there's some kind of abuse going on at that house.
Yeah. Great girl, terrible neighbor.
um Moving forward, you guys have this interesting thing where it's like, okay, we focused a lot on the negative stuff, but how does somebody has their like life completely upside down, how do they know even where to go, how to move forward with their life? Because full disclosure, that's how I feel right now.
Mhm.
And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are like me. Life is upside down. COVID did a huge number on our lives, massive number. And now it's like, where do I go from here?
Well, look at both of us jumping in and with all the answers there.
Right.
Um,
I
you
mean,
know,
go ahead, Zach. I've got some ideas, but go ahead.
yeah, I've got a couple of thoughts on this that you know, keep coming up in my life. And we might get a little woo woo here, just a little bit, but we
Let's go.
love
Let's go
the woo.
full blown woo.
You know, lately in the last couple of years, you know, things that are happening to me that are bad, that are negative. You know, I've really, and this is way easier said than done, right? Because we have these mental models, we have these pathways in our brain that go down the path of least resistance. And if you've been, like Jeremy likes to say, if you've been singing the same song for 20 years, that's what's going to happen. But, you know, if you can take a moment and really think about like, hey, I'm in this negative situation, or things aren't the way I want them to be. And if you can think about, well, this is just preparing me for, you know, the good situation, right? It's going to change. Like we're going to have change. It's inevitable. And just being really grateful for the moment of, even if you are in a negative situation, what's good? Are you okay? Are you breathing? Do you have food to eat? Like, do you have your basic needs met? And, you know, like we were talking about before we started recording, am I okay? Like, just really plain and simple. Am I alive? Like, am I, you know, do I know I'm going to die soon? Like, are you actually okay? Like in your body, in your physical being, like in this very moment, are you in any danger? And just being okay in that very moment, right, it brings me down a little bit, right? To say, I'm okay. Like things are okay. I've got some things in the future that I need to deal with, but right now I'm okay. I'm not hungry. I'm warm. You know, I've got a bed to sleep in. And then beyond that is assuming positive, right? It is really, really hard to do sometimes when you're in the throes of negativity. Like I said, easier said than done, but like it is your choice to choose negative or positive. And as you're going into a situation where things are negative, you can choose to be positive about it. You can choose to look for the opportunities in the situation, look for the opportunities where you're going to grow, look for the opportunities that are going to make you a better person when you've gotten through whatever this situation is. So those are just a couple of things that I do when I'm in a negative situation. I assume positivity and really just take that moment. Am I okay? And if I am, it's not as bad as it really seems.
One of the sort of practical tools that we just talked about this on, I think it was episode 149. We were talking about like a lot of times we, you know, the suffering we face is because of some change, there's some thing that has been disrupted in our routine, our daily lives, whatever. And so to put a finer point on what Zach was talking about the perspective, we literally, you can write two stories. Life, and I mean, literally with a pen and paper, computer, however you write, but life can be a tragedy or it can be a comedy. And so write both versions and then read them and make a decision about which one you want the outcome to be. And the path will present itself for you. If you write out the worst case scenario of how awful things are going to be, you're going to look at that and you're going to go, that's ridiculous. That's not going to happen. Write out the best case scenario. And all of a sudden you start trying to piece together, well, how do I make that happen? And all of a sudden the goals to get there present themselves. And you write those down and you put them on the calendar and you start figuring out when do I do this? When do I do that? What do I need help with? Where am I lacking? So, I mean, that's just like the physical, tangible, something you can do right now to sort of get it together, is to just get those stories out of your head. They're just taking up free space. Put them on paper and then pick which one you want the outcome to be and go after that. So
I love it. I love it. Sorry, I cut you off. My bad.
No, that's okay. That's okay. That's one thing. The other thing for me, where I have found the most, I guess, relief from all that is, you know, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's from Seneca. You know, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. We spend so much time in our heads regretting whatever happened, wishing we did something different. You know, we should have invested that thing, shouldn't have quit that job, shouldn't have let that girl go, shouldn't have sold that house, like whatever stories we tell ourselves about the past. We then counter them with, oh God, everything's going to be terrible. What if I blow that? How am I going to screw that up? And almost none of it's true. The past stuff is way worse than anyone else thinks it is. And it doesn't exist anymore because it's in the past. So let that shit go. It doesn't matter. The stuff in the future, you have no control over it. You can sort of steer the boat a little bit, but whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So the more you can sort of let go of that worst case scenario that's coming and accept where you are and how to just maneuver the oar a little bit in the river, you're going to be able to guide yourself down that river a lot more than all this thinking you're doing about how you're going to completely change the direction of the river in another path. So for me, it's just getting quiet and just shutting those voices up through meditation. For me, the cold therapy is a great way to do it. I go plunk myself down in a cold river and just survive for 5 minutes. And man, that'll shut those voices up really quick when all you're focused on is don't die right now. This is really cold. All of a sudden, all that stuff just goes away. So there's a couple of different ways that I would approach that feeling that you're talking about.
Yeah, well, we both brought up a lot of good talking points. So many good talking points, but I want to touch up on one of them, which is the feeling. I know we were talking about this before, like Zach said, we were talking about this before the show. Just is being okay. Like, is just being okay, or is it a false sense of comfort?
I don't think it's a false sense of comfort. I think I would argue that whatever the feeling is that makes you feel like you're not okay would be the false information. You know, because like Jeremy was saying, like we blow it up way bigger in our head than it actually is. I have, you know, I suffer from anxiety to the point where when I was officially diagnosed with it, the therapist who was, you know, reading the results to me, she's like, okay, Zach, here's the top of the chart. This is the max you can have anxiety. And then she went way above the chart and said, you're up here. So I live in the future of that worry, that constant, like, what if I'm not good enough? Like all the time of worrying about what's going to happen and how I'm going to fail and how things are not going to go well. And that's always the false data. It's always the false data. Like some of those things are legit. And you know, if you worry about something appropriately, you can put controls in place to prevent said thing from happening, right? So there is, you know, a good thing about worrying, but, you know, spiraling out of control is a bad thing. So I think, you know, again, like I said earlier, like taking that moment to really just assess of, okay, am I okay? Am I in this very moment going to die? Is there a bear that's about to eat me? Am I about to get hit by a car? Like, do I have food? Am I hungry? Like those basic things, like, and I don't think it's a false sense of security at all. I think it's resetting. It's really level setting you to oh, I actually am okay. These things in the future, yes, I need to worry about them and I can do things about them, but because I'm okay, I can do something about those.
I was literally going to make the bear analogy too, so I'm glad you said that.
Nice.
One little trick that I've tried to employ myself, and it doesn't come in as handy since I don't work in an office where, you know, small talk rules the day. But if you are surrounded by people and you're asked all the time, "Oh, how's it going? How you doing?" For me, I'm not answering them. For me, that's my moment to check in. How am I? Am I okay? Because are you happy? Are you just like freaking happy all the time? Are you miserable all the time? No. Sure, you have moments of both, and that's great. That's part of the experience of life, is swinging back and forth. Most of the time, we live right at okay, content if it's a good day. And so whenever someone asks me, how are you? I literally answer myself, I'm okay, because I am, right? Like literally, unless a bear is chasing me or I'm about to, you know, drive my car off a cliff or something, I'm probably okay. So I think Zach's completely right that okay is the true state of where you are, unless you're on one of those roller coaster swings for whatever reason. But yeah, all the stories and things that are swirling in our head, that's all the false data, like you said.
Jeremy, in the last part, you actually said something I wanted to touch up on before we start to end off the show. You were talking about dealing with the past and not
Mhm.
worrying about too much. There's a lot of people, myself included, I think everybody in the world always looks at the past and sees, this didn't work, that didn't work, this didn't work, that didn't work. I am coming to the realization that I can't rewind time to
Mhm.
fix those problems.
Hmm.
My question is, how would you help somebody? How do you guys help people come to the realization past is the past? All you can do is just find your lesson and just move forward. How do you guys go about doing that?
It's like you just said, and I would argue that you can rewind time because you can change your relationship with whatever regret or pain that you have from the past. Uh, Quick story about something that I experienced. Zach and I, when we both lived in Seattle, we would go to this meditation in the middle of the afternoon. This generous woman would host group meditations in a generic conference room, and I just saw it as sort of a way to go check in, like just take a break from work, find some quiet, whatever. And just one random Monday, I went to this session, and like an idiot in the middle of it, I just started bawling because in the middle of this meditation, I went through this. We're going to get into the woo woo again, so prepare yourself. I went through this crazy portal, ended up standing next to myself at 12 years old, watching my dad leave our family and preparing to tell my mom that my dad left our family. And I stood there, in reality, I stood there alone, scared, didn't know what to do, didn't understand. Nobody explained it in a way that made sense to me. That afternoon, sitting in that conference room, I was taken back in time, standing next to myself as an adult, and parented myself through that. It sounds insane, I know, but that was my experience. And now my living memory of that moment has me there comforting me. I no longer am standing there alone, afraid, not knowing what to do. I now have a different relationship with that moment. So there are ways to do that through breath work and meditation. I mean, you can get very, very tangible and do these practices to re-parent, to relive experiences. But if that's not your thing, you have to look at those setbacks, whatever they were, as the obstacle you had to get over to where you are now. And we talk about this analogy that we heard on the show too, where you look at the biggest, strongest trees. They're that way because their roots are deep because they face the strongest winds. The weak ones, fall over because they've never really been challenged. So every one of those setbacks is something that is strengthening you for the next. And if you can look at them now and change your relationship with those and just let go of regret, because regret's a fucking waste of time. Like what a useless, way to use your energies, to feel bad about something that you have absolutely no control over. So instead, use that energy to just try and change your relationship with it. Like what did that set in motion? How did that put me to where I am now? And what opportunities do I have now because of that? What did I learn from that is going to change my life going forward? Because, and it's very easy to do for me now because I've been working on it for so long, but just regret is just such a waste of time and energy. So just use that energy differently to change that relationship and, and explore the tools that are available to change your relationship with the past.
And just to add one piece to it, like uh, he's absolutely right. Like you do need to go deep. Like if you want to change your relationship with a memory, like that's some really deep work that you can do, and it takes time to get there. So don't expect to listen to this if you've never meditated or never done breath work to like go have this mystical experience. It's going to do it. Like that takes a lot of time. But just doubling down on the, that thing that you went through made you who you are today. And in some way, shape, or form, whatever it is, you have a benefit from it. You have experience from it that will point you in a different direction based on different decisions that you're going to have later on in life. So whatever, like I had the first 20 years of my life were terrible. My mom abandoned me when I was 6, had to be taken away, by CPS, and moved in with my dad, who I didn't even know, who was born in the 1920s. And like, he was a, different kind of a dad. Like I had a really nasty 20 years of my, of growing up. But I can't change any of that now. And I really, to Jeremy's point, like you just have to be okay. Like I am who I am because of that experience. And I'm going to say thank you to that experience for making me who I am today, because I wouldn't be doing any of the things that I'm doing today if I hadn't had that shitty childhood.
There's no greater teacher than failure.
Wow, both of you guys just kicked me right in the right in the. Anyways, we're going to be wrapping up the show. Like I could go on another hour with you guys on this, but I know you guys have stuff to do. You guys are busy. We're going to be wrapping up the show, and these are the 7 or 8 questions I ask all my guests. I just want your perspective on these topics. With the increase in people suffering from depression, from the constant uncertainty that we've been living through for the last 2.5 to 3 years, what would be the one thing that you could tell them to keep their hopes up?
That's a tough one, because I've lived with depression my entire life. I still battle it now. I will just say, again, at the risk of being repetitive, like you need support. You need someone that gets it. You need a therapist, a coach, a close friend, someone you can turn to, because sometimes you need someone else to remind you that even though times are darkest now, the sun will rise again. Because when you're in that place, it doesn't feel like it will.
Yeah.
It feels
Connection.
like it's never going to happen. So you have to connect with somebody who can ground you back in reality and make it clear that it's going to be okay, because it's going to be okay until it's not. So find someone that you can count on to help keep you grounded in what is true.
Yeah, I'm gonna just echo that connection. It seems very simple, but like having people that you can connect with, it lets you know that you're not alone in whatever it is that you're going through.
Cool. What's the one thing that you guys do daily that amplifies your ability to stay focused?
So I have a very regimented morning routine that I go through. I mentioned I get up at 4:30 every morning. I go to the gym on the off days where I don't go to the gym, because it is a good thing to take off days and take rest days. I still get up at the same time, and I go to yoga and work on my mindfulness there. But I have certain supplements that I take. I have certain journaling that I do, gratitude, like these core things. I do them all first thing in the morning to set myself up for success for the rest of the day. If I do those things early and just get them done, I have a sense of accomplishment, and there's nothing that's going to happen throughout the day that's going to take those wins away from me. So I get everything I need to do for my mental and physical health done early and quickly before the rest of the world wakes up.
One of the things is really simple: get enough sleep. If your body's rested and has the energy it needs, then you're going to have a better chance facing whatever thing you're going to face. Number 2 would be moving your body in some way. Take a walk, whatever it takes. Again, your body is storing energy. It wants to move it. So however you can do that. And then the one weird thing that I do is just some sort of cold exposure. Go plop myself in the river, go jump in the lake, walk around outside in shorts and a t-shirt for 20 minutes, like whatever I need to do when, no matter how cold it is. If I can expose myself to some cold, it just helps quiet the voices that are the darkest.
If you guys could pick up the phone right now and call yourselves at 20 years old, what would you tell yourself?
That is easy. And I've actually had this thought, and I have a picture of myself as a child that I talk to a lot, just to, and that one message is, everything's going to be okay.
Mm. I like that. And I guess the lesson that I learned too late is that small things consistently are the key to whatever you're trying to accomplish. Stop trying to do everything at once. Just take small steps every day toward whatever that thing is.
Very cool. Very cool. Looking back, would you change anything?
Nope.
Oh, I'm sure I could change a couple of things. There's a few investment opportunities I took that I probably
There's
shouldn't
some
have.
Starbucks
But
stock I should have held on to, but
but for the most part, no. Like I said, I am who I am because of the experiences, both good and bad, that I've been through.
Good. If I was smart, I would have invested a couple $100 on Bitcoin.
Mhm.
What scares you?
Everything. I'm not kidding. Like I said, I have really high anxiety, so I do live in fear a lot. But I think the one thing that scares me the most is I'm a people pleaser, and external motivation. Like, the one thing that scares me the most is letting down people that I care about when they need something from me, like truly, truly need something from me.
dancing and roller coasters. They both terrify me. I don't like either one. I don't want anything to do with them. Those two things. But seriously, anything involving pain for my children. That is what keeps me up at night, is something negative happening to them in their lives.
Where do you guys see the Fit Mess in the next 5 years?
Jeremy?
I mean, we're on a trajectory for the success that we planned for. And so, I think that for me, that success is reaching as many people as possible so that we can help them understand that they're not alone in whatever their pain is, and whatever the dark voices are telling them. We hear them too. And we want people to know that it doesn't have to be as lonely as we make it. And so if we can help them through that and help them find one new thing to try that sets them up on a path to kick open a door that opens up 3 more, that opens up 5 more. That's what we're here to do. It's just to help people carve that path for themselves, and know that they're not alone walking it.
Yeah. And just to make sure that whether it's 2 people listening or 100,000 people listening in 5 years, if we help one person, I call that a success.
That's awesome. Where can people find more about you?
Well, the main website is thefitmess.com. That's where you can find the episodes I mentioned. Number 149 is where we go more in depth on that whole idea of tragedy versus comedy, if you want to learn more about that. And then again, I think it was episode number 8 where we talked to Johan Hari about addiction and connection. And if you want to read a book that may change your perspective on addiction and help you kick it, especially if you battle depression, his book, Lost Connections, is incredible. We talk all about it on that episode number 8. Again, those are both at thefitmess.com.
And we will post all the links to both those episodes, plus any other links that you guys have sent me with it in the show notes, so everybody has access to your content, which is a really great podcast, fitness podcast. I'd listen to it as well. So keep up the great work. Any final thoughts?
We just really appreciate the opportunity to share what we're doing here, and we hope to connect with your listeners down the road.
Yeah. And I'll just say, for anyone who is listening, like, great job wherever you are. Great job. You're okay.
It's going to be okay.
And great job.
Guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. It really does mean a lot to me to have you guys with your powerful stories of addiction and how you guys kicked it. I know addiction is not an easy thing to kick. I've been through it. I've been through alcoholism myself. Early 20 guy, in Toronto, lot of drinking.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy thing when everything just stops. And to have 2 guys come on and share their stories, and like it's really inspiring. Thank you guys so much for what you do, for what you guys do.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks for having us on.
Going through hard times is just a test. What you need to know is that when you get out of whatever you're going through, you will be stronger than ever before, and you don't need to go through it alone. Always know that you are not alone. Stay tuned for more real people with amazing stories that are just like yours. Until then, to everyone out there listening, I wish you a good morning, good afternoon, or good night, wherever you may be in this crazy world. Hey, everybody, it's John from Resilient Reboot Productions and the Fitness Oracle. Thank you for watching this episode, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and share this video if you are watching this on YouTube or on Rumble. If you're listening to this on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast Breaker, or whatever streaming service that you may be using, please give us a 5-star rating and a positive review, as it will help us reach more people that are suffering from mental health issues. Before you go, I'd like to invite you to join us on Pod Inbox. This is a great platform that we can keep the conversation going. Over the years, we've discovered that the best way to help people regain their confidence back of whatever fitness goal that they are looking for is to put together a tight-knit community that will be here to support you in that journey. So in order for us to do that, we are partnering up with Pod Inbox to help us create that platform and give you that opportunity to have your voice. So all you have to do is click on the link in the show notes and set up your free account on Pod Inbox right now. And let's hear your voice. Until then, I'll see you guys soon.